Bengals have hired their offensive coordinator and Dan Pitcher. We'll talk about this and much more coming up next on the Wincinnati podcast.
It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm Ace. We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals, Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all boy.
I got to get your top 5 receivers.
Better, man. It was good.
Watch out for us.
Welcome to the Wincinnati podcast. I am Ace. He is Zim. Zim, what's going on, partner?
Shit, straight. Hold up, can you hear me? Coming straight from the gym, feeling good. Just trying to get better and better every single day. We got a lot of different topics. We got something really big that happened down there at Paycor today. Aside from that, not too much. What's up with you, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Like you said, a lot of news today. I feel like it was kind of the changing of the guard. You kind of had Brian Callahan's press conference. You had Dan Pitcher's incoming press conference. So a lot to talk about on that front. And I guess that's where we can start, right? So Dan Pitcher, he's a guy that really actually came over from the Marvin Lewis kind of era. One of the few people that they kind of kept around in the building. Zac Taylor kind of spoke about it today. He said when he arrived, a lot of people within the organization said, hey, this Dan Pitcher guy, you might want to keep him around. He was a guy that was able to grow through the ranks, become a quarterbacks coach, and really do some things right with Jake Browning and Joe Burrow. So it's no surprise that he's the guy. This is what people kind of expected, especially after last season, where they kind of bumped up his pay a little bit. With this being the contingency plan, he accepts that and becomes the offensive coordinator. Is this really a surprise, though? I feel like we kind of knew this, right? We kind of felt like, yeah, he had interviews. He was very busy, but this was to be kind of expected, right?
Right. I just think that this was the plan in place. This is the reason why, Pitcher comes back. He had offers on the table, as I kind of laid out. I did like a quick show yesterday. If you guys check that out on Wincinnati, before he was announced, or I guess it was the day before yesterday. Now it was on Tuesday. I'm kind of getting lost in my days. But this was the plan in place. He had an opportunity to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. He didn't take that. He talked about it today. He said people that he asked outside of this situation or just wanted to get some words of advice said, when you get an elite quarterback, you stick with him as long as you can. So I thought that stood out. He said, knowing that we have a guy that can win us a world championship, it's hard to put a price tag on that. So some of the things that we had said all along, as far as Pitcher being able to, it's not riding the coattails of Joe Burrow, but it's a given situation that if Joe Burrow just stays healthy, you're in the playoffs. I think the Bengals proved that this year. Even when Burrow's out, they go 9-8 and they're the first team out of the playoffs, I guess, and that's why we had the 18th pick. But I think, if you just do enough and Burrow stays healthy, you're going to the playoffs. And what you do from that point on, that's where the great ones are, that's where we create great coaching. This is why we get to the next level. And this is what we talk about on the show, is like sustaining that and having success. And Dan Pitcher, I think, understands that. And that's why he came on back. And I think he feels right at home.
Yeah, he interviewed with the Saints. He also interviewed with the Patriots. So interviewed with a couple of different spots. You kind of mentioned that he also interviewed with the Bucs last year. Pitcher, for those who don't know, he started off as a wide receivers coach in SUNY or SUNY, Cortland in 2012. Then he became the Bengals offensive assistant in 2016. He was in that role from 2016 to 2018. And then he became the assistant quarterbacks coach under Zac Taylor in 2019. Then kind of took over in 2020. And that was very important because that's when Joe Burrow showed up. From 2020 to 2023, he's been the Bengals quarterbacks coach. And then now going forward, he is the offensive coordinator. He also actually has a background in scouting as well, where he was a scouting assistant for the Colts in 2012 to 2013. And then he was a pro scout from 2014 through 2015. So that's something to also keep in mind because as we know, the Bengals coaching staff is somewhat involved in the draft process as well. But that also opens up a spot at the quarterback coaching position. And Zac Taylor kind of spoke on that today. What are your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people feel like that could be a place where they internally fill that slot, but it seems like it could be potentially somewhere on the outside as well. And I think for me, a person to keep an eye on is who kind of opened that spot for a pitcher to come in, which is Alex Van Pelt. I'm not saying that the Bengals will do that, but he did end up going to Cleveland, and that's where pitcher kind of stepped in. He is somebody that's familiar. Is there anybody that you have in mind in terms of what they should do at the quarterback coach opening that they currently have?
There is a guy I cannot I can't think of his name.
Clansthorpe or something like that. That guy.
Yeah. And Zac Taylor and company and guys like that have been talking about him and how they put a lot on his plate. And I think that that's the route that they probably go. Me personally, I think that having Cragthorpe. Me personally, I think that having the sustainability of keeping some of the same coaches in there is all good. And I was asking this in spaces too. And I was asking people, are you excited or you liked it? Because a lot of people said they like the Dan Pitcher move. I said, are you excited about that because of the the security that it gives you? Is that the safe pick? And a lot of people were kind of stuck on, yeah, I guess so. You know what I mean? And I think one way to kind of group that up, if I were in the building, which I'm not, I would put an outside voice in to say, hey, look, these are some things that we keyed in on that you do all the time. I mean, I think we get on the show and we talk about, man, they're dropping back 40 times and stuff, but there's other keys and different things that I know from an outside perspective that coaches probably see, and I would like them to bring that voice in. There might be someone that I think that, and I don't know who that person would be. I don't have, I got a list of candidates I like. I think Van Pelt is cool, but I think somebody like Van Pelt is somebody that's probably been watching the situation the whole entire time that probably would have some really good input that would say, hey, these are things that I think that we could clean up, and this is what I can add to the room. And then the people that are already there, like the Dan Pitchers of the world, say, yeah, we tried that already in week 3. Check out the table. You know what I mean? So now you got a whole nother voice in the room, and that's what I would like to see. I feel the same. I feel way more stronger about that. And I think you're on the same page with me too, with the offensive line coach. And I just don't know what they're going to do with that, because the Frank Pollock one, it's not that I'm down on Frank Pollock. I'm down on the run coordination in the actual play calling and the lack of short yardage. I mean, the lack of the short yardage situations is horrible. And I just think that that's a big element of helping Burrow out. He shouldn't be lining up in shotgun in 3rd and 2. I should be able to line up in under center. And if I want to run the ball, there's a chance I can go get a 3rd and 2 if I got a good, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna watch some games this weekend. I don't think the Ravens are shying away from running the ball on 3rd and 2. I'm saying 3rd and 2. What about 3rd and 1? You know what I mean? I'm just giving you they don't have the ability to do either one. And I just think that that's a product of run game coordination, and it's bigger than just can Pollock coach these guys up. And I think they need a new voice there. I mean, that would be the one thing that I would change. The Cragthorpe one is the most likely hire. I don't know much about him, but they did speak.
I do know a little bit about him just from actually doing a shirt for Troy Walters the year that we went to the Super Bowl, and he actually used it, I believe, help him with the wide receivers. So it looks like last season, it looks like he was working as an assistant quarterbacks coach. So we could see him step into that role, but I always wondered who he was because he was in the picture that Troy had sent me that they wanted to kind of have done with the wide receivers. So I know that he's spent some time working with the wide receivers, and it looks like he also has worked with the quarterbacks as well. You kind of hit on something, though, where you talked about the run game coordinator. And, since we've last met on this show, we didn't get a chance to talk about Andy Dickerson, who was a guy that that interviewed for the offensive coordinator position before they made the pitcher decision. That was very interesting because his current role with the Seahawks was offensive line coach as well as run game coordinator. So I thought that was very interesting that Zac kind of met with him. I kind of wonder like what pitcher's vision is for this offense in terms of the offensive line and the run game. You kind of mentioned that he had some quotes about the run game today where it was kind of an emphasis. Dave Lapham kind of touched on that as well. I think that the run game definitely has to be a part of this, but I kind of wonder with this situation, how much input is Dan Pitcher going to have on the run game? Play calling. Is it still, because I kind of still expect Zac to call the plays. I'm going to just be honest. I think that Pitcher's going to be more involved in the game plan and that kind of aspect, but I still feel like, maybe Troy Walters gets the red zone calls. Who knows if Pitcher gets third down, because I think Pitcher was already getting third down before. But how do you see his role kind of expanding? Like, do you think that there's, I think they also kind of talked about, is he going to be down on the field? Is he going to be up in the booth? Because, Callahan used to be up in the booth.
He looks like a booth guy to me.
He looks like a booth guy to you?
He does to me. When we were talking about Troy Walters on the last one, I was like, man, that's a sideline guy right there. Like, he wanted to talk to them boys. But doesn't it? I mean, am I wrong? The pitcher looks like a booth guy to me.
He does kind of look like a booth guy. And I mean, the relationship that he apparently has with Joe Burrow, I just imagine him. You would want to see him and Burrow on the sideline, though. But I do think he could be a booth guy that's talking to Burrow in the headset.
I had a quote from him too, where he was talking about Burrow. He said pretty much since he came here, him and Joe been tied at the hip. So if anybody's wondering about the relationship with Pitcher and Burrow, they're very close. Burrow spoke very highly of him recently too. And just also, Pitcher was part of the game day management. So part of that brain trust when they get together and get, the game plans for Sunday. Now we're going to find out moving forward, because at the press conference today, he talked about running the football and he put a big emphasis on it. We're going to find out, is Brian Callahan the reason why Joe Burrow was dropping back so many damn times, because he's so used to being around these great quarterbacks? Because Pitcher, he does talk a little bit about the running, talks about running a little bit more. And I think just based off of his personality traits and different things that I see, I think he would be more keen and more honed in on running the football a little bit more. That's just my assumption. I haven't heard anything recently now before where he's talking about his philosophies and what he does different than Callahan. You're probably not going to get that audio at all, because kind of would be like a little smack in the face to be like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do better than Callahan. Like, I don't think you're going to get that audio, but I think only time will tell. I think he understands for sure how the NFL is going and how teams are putting the emphasis on the tight end position, how teams are putting the emphasis on condensed formations. I think he's really, really he's locked in on that. So I feel good about that portion.
Do you think, like, let me go through some of the numbers here before I ask you this about Callahan. When Callahan took over in 2019, the Bengals scoring offense was 30th in 2019. Obviously, that was still with Andy Dalton. 29th in 2020 with Andy Dalton as well. And then they jumped up after they got Burrow to 7th in 2021, which was a Super Bowl year. 7th again the following season. And then this season with a mix between Burrow and Jake Browner, and they were 16th. Do you feel like Bengals fans are downplaying like the loss of Brian Callahan? I feel like everybody's just acting like, Pitch is going to come in, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how much are we going to miss Brian Callahan? Because it doesn't seem like too many people are really worried about us missing him or losing him to a team like Tennessee. And this was a guy that became a head coach. Obviously, he's got the NFL pedigree. Obviously, you kind of talked about it last time. He coached that Peyton Manning team. What will the effect of losing him have on the team?
I just think that Callahan had been in the room with Peyton Mannings and Staffords and all of that. So you seen him with Peyton Manning when he was at his best. And a lot of that was deciphering the defense, processing, and I think that he kind of gave Burrow a lot of that, coaching him through those different points and like these are the different things that you could do. And you already know Burrow was a bright mind when he came out. I just thought Callahan added to that. I do think that they put a lot on Joe Burrow's plate early on. And I don't know if that's a product of Callahan. And that's the thing. We don't really know the inner workings of these conversations. And we hear about this is how they put together the game plan. This is the things that they do. You hear different Brian Callahan interviews. You heard him on different shows. And he's very honest. And I like the things that he said. You just don't know yet. And I think as Bengals fans, we're kind of like in that I don't know stage. I feel like we had that one day where we were all bachelors and bachelorettes where we were like, ooh, let's see what OC is out there. And then that just ended in Dan Pitcher is announced. And it was kind of fun to just kind of explore that, like, what does that look like to have like a different, OC? Because you don't really, that's the thing about it. This season is so weird. Because when Burrow goes out, I just really felt like people are really forgetting. Burrow would put himself back in the MVP conversation. His numbers through 9-10 weeks or whatever, he led the AFC North in passing yards, touchdowns, all these different things like that. Guess who else is in the AFC North? So it's like he had like this momentum that he was going with, and it was eerily similar to 2022. And a lot of people were like, well, I mean, you can't compare it to that, but man, it was moving like that. And I just think that we don't know, what was the problem, because the problem never even really presented itself. The last time we saw Joe Burrow, he was cooking. You know what I mean? Like, the only thing I saw was he was hurt at the beginning of the year, and then the defense took a step back that we noticed very early in the season. The offensive line I thought was blocking pretty well. What was failing the Bengals at that point? Like, there was some games in there. I thought he played bad in the Seahawks game, but the defense, picked him up. I thought he played pretty good in the Texans game, but he made some big mistakes in that game. He just couldn't get out of it. And even after that, he still had a chance to get the Tyler Boyd touchdown. It's like we can pick all the different things that we want us to do and, fix the team. But at the end of the day, I thought they were getting on a roll. They were like one of the hotter teams in football. Right. And it's not really much to say bad about it, in my opinion, other than the fact that the run pass distribution was off. And I don't know. I thought he was doing good. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe Burrow is the type of guy, not to downplay like any of the staff members. I don't mean this with any disrespect, but I feel like me and you could be out there calling plays with Joe Burrow. You feel me? Because he's that great of a player. You've got guys like Jamar Chase. Now, the one thing I will say.
How many games, though?
What do you mean?
If you're coaching Joe Burrow, how many games?
I mean, obviously I can't coach, but I mean, I just think he's that good. I just think he's that good that you could put anybody around him. And
hey, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. We're going to the bowl if I'm out there. We going to the bowl. All I'm gonna do is hire some brilliant minds, and then we're gonna have conversations. And Joe Burrow, we're gonna be like, "What you like, Joe? You like this? You don't like that? Okay, Joe, we gotta run the ball." And then on game day, I'm gonna have them boys turned up.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm telling you, I'm going to the ball.
I do think like the one thing that kind of not necessarily shocked me, but caught me by surprise is when that NFLPA like survey came out and they had Callahan as like one of the top coordinators voted on by the players. I thought that was interesting, but I think this team, anybody would be thrilled to be able to coach Joe Burrow like Pitcher. Jamar Chase in this offense, keeping the guys in this offense, I think, happy is very key. And I'm not saying Pitcher can't do that, but when you have a guy like Jamar Chase, you have a guy like T. Higgins, you have a run game potentially with Chase Brown and possibly some new weapons in this offensive line. I just feel like that's one of the best positions to be in the NFL, and that's probably one of the reasons why Pitcher came back and is ready to take the reins on this one. But I'm ready to see, how this thing goes. I'm cautiously optimistic. My only issue I would say with Dan Pitcher is I don't know if he has the resume of Brian Callahan when he came in, right? Like Callahan has been an offensive coordinator before and this and that. So we'll see. But I think the fact that you got Troy Walters there, the fact that you have the supporting cast, Zach is still calling the plays.
Simmons.
He's been in there, familiarity. I think it's a good move for them. So, what are your thoughts? We talked about Pitcher being here. Let's talk about Callahan real quick, just for a quick second before we get into like the AFC Conference.
Okay.
What do you feel about him being on the Titans? Like, what does that do for them? Because I know that we'll probably get a lot of people in the YouTube views from the Titans trying to find anything that they can on Brian Callahan.
I feel like Callahan is a guy. I think if you're a Titans fan, your perspective is very different than the Bengals fan. Like you're looking at, I got this big throwing arm, Will Levis quarterback. And in my mind, like, I'm just like, there's a big part missing. And it's this guy named Joe Burrow. Like you want to throw, cool. But from the run game and what you guys do really, really well, I thought for a big portion of like why the Titans were so successful or whatever, I think most of that comes from the run game, being stout on defense, being tough. They're built like an AFC North team, right? Those aren't the elements that I think Callahan gives them. And I think it's a change of like, I think they're probably like, yeah, we need to modernize this team and we need to get away from that smash mouth style. But the crazy thing about it is the NFL currently is thriving off of teams that win in the trenches and do that style. And I'm sure Callahan is going to tell them, yeah, we're not losing that. But from a Titan standpoint, I think they're thinking like, okay, we're going to effectively throw more. But if you really go look at the Tannehill numbers and stuff like that, a lot of this is off of play action. Mm-hmm. But a lot of his numbers, like throwing attempts and stuff, aren't that different than the Bengals. So like this concept that they're going to throw more. And I went back to Tannehill because I'm just going back to when the Titans were like at the top of the AFC for the last, 2000. When I say the top, I'm just saying like number one seed, knock off the Ravens. They had their run. And I think if you're a Titans fan, you're probably tired of running into teams where you're getting outthrown on. Like when you ran into the Bengals, you did all that on defense. You did everything you could. And then Joe Burrow still throws for 350 and wins the game in dramatic fashion. And I think Callahan can probably talk to him about different points and help him out in that regard. But I don't know if that makes them a lot better. I think Callahan is a very honest person. I watched a lot of his interviews and stuff before, and I think he's very honest. And, it's different. I will say this. Me and you both know people that were on a Titan staff. My guy works directly with players. And if you were soft with Vrabel, you weren't playing. Also, from a practice standpoint, they put them through hell. And that was just their style. It just got them tough, and that's just how they identify. And a lot of players didn't like it, I'm sure. So I think Callahan, you'll get a better, schedule. And you were talking about that a little bit earlier in Spaces. Is like you're going to get like that relaxed one that's kind of vet friendly, not putting too much pressure on guys. And I think a lot of players are starting to like that. So I think you get some of those things from a characteristic standpoint. Those things are out the door because that was a tough ran team by Vrabel. Like the way that they coached them, the way that they practiced was very tough. And I think you'll get a little bit more relaxed, atmosphere and more player friendly atmosphere. Not to say that Callahan wouldn't demand a lot from them too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be more player friendly. I think it'll be more of an offensive based team. I think, coming from Vrabel, defensive minded kind of head coach, and sometimes that can limit the team and who they put at the quarterback position, because Ryan Tannehill is a limited quarterback. I mean, he's essentially was just looking for a guy that wasn't going to, ironically, turn the ball over much, because that's exactly what he did against us in the playoffs. And they're just looking for guys that are just really going to be game managers. And I think now that they have Callahan, if Will Levis isn't the answer, I think they'll probably look for somebody to replace him. But they at least have an offensive coach for Will Levis to kind of grow with and do some things. I also think like Callahan being there increases the chances that his dad will come and work for them. So automatically that's going to upgrade your offensive line in the trenches if his dad does choose to go there. That's also good for us.
That's what we want.
That takes him out of Cleveland, which
I've seen conflicted reports on that, where some Cleveland writers and stuff saying that it's not possible, it's not happening. Then you see some of the other ones, some of them aggregate Twitter ones that just kind of put out like a little bit of fluff and stuff there where they're reporting this. I don't know who to believe.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because obviously he has to put his coaching staff together. It doesn't seem like he's taking anybody from the Bengal staff with him, but we'll see over, training camp and all of these things as they sort themselves out, because he's obviously going to put his staff together. So it'll be interesting to see, if he takes any Bengals people with him or if he ends up taking his dad. So, yeah, we'll see once things kind of work themselves out. But yeah, I guess we could put a bow on the coaching stuff unless you had anything else that you wanted to say in regards to Pitcher or Callahan.
Congratulations, Brian Callahan, on your new opportunities, and wish you the best. Unless you play the Bengals, I hope you suck. Also, congrats on Dan Pitcher. I was pretty impressed with his press conference. Nothing too crazy, but I think we'll get what we're looking for, and I'm really excited where the Bengals are headed. Really looking forward to this free agent. This is one of my most sought after or more excited free agency periods that I think I've had in a very long time. Because sometimes we had that feeling where like I don't think they're gonna do much. This one I think that they do a lot, but maybe it's not big splash names. But I'm really excited about that, and I think that'll give us a little bit of insight of what Dan Pitcher's thinking too.
For sure. All right. So Conference Championship week, we have the last 4 teams left in this NFL playoffs after last week. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Baltimore Ravens, and then we have the Detroit Lions at the 49ers. Let's start it off in the AFC. I think that this is a situation, given the way the playoffs have gone, these are both like some of the good teams or some of the best teams out of their respective conference, especially when you talk about the AFC side. With no Bengals being there, with the Bills losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, Ravens, Chiefs is probably what most people expected. I mean, you're talking about the 2 top seeds in the AFC facing off here. I think it makes for a very interesting game because this game is in Baltimore, in MNT. But they're going against a Chiefs team and Patrick Mahomes that's pretty much been there. They've only lost to Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. And this is what some people consider somewhat kind of a dynasty kind of thing. And I think this is a big step towards them trying to actually cement that, given this second run, right? The run after Tyreek Hill, that they kind of started bumpy because they lost to us. And then they were able to make that run last year. Bengals meet them in the AFC Championship. Obviously, we have some injuries. They're able to take advantage of those, move past us. And then this season, that matchup that we wanted, the rematch, wasn't able to happen, unfortunately, because Burrow was hurt. So in comes Baltimore, who's kind of in a position where they're kind of all in, right? They've got 20 unrestricted free agents after this season. This is a situation where they've been able to kind of come out of the AFC as the number 1 seed. They've got their health. If there was ever a time for them, I think if they don't get this one, it's kind of who knows. Yeah. If it's not now, then when will Baltimore take care of business? Right. What are your thoughts just like coming into this game? Obviously, these are 2 opps that we do not like. However, this is the cards that we've been dealt, and this is the game that's going to be played.
This is a game that I am definitely looking forward to. Just from a football perspective,
from a football fan standpoint, yeah.
I was really looking forward to that Texans game. CJ Stroud like really disappointed me, but at the same time, I walked away from that game and I said, man, it would really be a special team that you have to be able to throw the ball, of course, run consistently. You don't have to run for 100-something yards against the Ravens, but you have to run consistently to keep at least the edges, man, it's so tough for me to see scenarios where I could see the Chiefs winning. The pedigree of Chiefs, it kind of reminds me, and I was listening to them talk like back and forth the other day. Remember when we was about to play the Rams and everybody was like, and we were like, man, forget whatever y'all talking about. Like, we the Bengals, we the young dudes, here we come, we about to go get it, whatever.
Right.
And everybody kept on saying, well, we got this championship pedigree from the Rams. I'm sorry, when we about to play the Chiefs. They kept on saying all that stuff. And it kind of reminded me of that. And then I thought some of the championship pedigree stuff kind of reared his head, like in the Rams game, like you got McVay that was part of those commander staffs before, and you got all this stuff going on. And I feel like the Ravens are in a tough spot as far as that goes. But as far as pure talent, I just think that that's the best team in football, bro. I just think that the Ravens are the best team in football. They got so many answers to anything that you stop. There was a brief period where they had their athletic linebacker Harris from the Texans. He started to ramp it up and do some things to stop Lamar. They go full wide. They send all guys out, and then they use Gus Edwards as like a blocker. They didn't block the dude. Like they had an answer for every single thing. And I think that Spags has done really well against Lamar. So that's the thing that I think that they got to see, how does that look? And I will say that I think that the corners for the Chiefs are able to go on an island. And that's really important when you're talking about beating Lamar Jackson in the actual running ability, and on top of him being able to pass. Are those wide receivers getting open? And I thought there were parts in that game where Bateman and Odell did shake free. I think Ladarius Sneed has played one of the best seasons out of any corner in the NFL. And McDuffie has now been one of the best slots in the NFL as well, too. If they can go one-on-one with them dudes, then you have enough resources to stay in there. But if they can't do that, then I don't know. The other great matchup on the other side is Kyle Hamilton versus Kelsey. I just want to see, like, what does that look like, man? I'm really excited to see that one too. It's a bunch of different matchups, but every time I go back to it, I just think, to me, from the beginning to the end, the Ravens are only trailed in one game in the fourth quarter, and that was the Rams. If the Chiefs can get them in a spot where they're trailing, maybe. But if you don't, it's just no stopping it. The Chiefs' weakness at some point, most of the season, had been stopping the run. And what they do, just like they did us, is they just limit the possessions. Pat might only get 7 possessions in this whole entire game. And the way that he's been playing in the playoffs has been a lot better. But this isn't the old Pat where it's just He need to cut on that. He need to cut on that Joe Burrow tape where he was killing them intermediates. If they really know what I know, kill the intermediates and then attack the flats. Target Patrick Queen and some of those flats like Mixon was doing. You saw the Texans come out early in the game and do that Singletary on a wheel route. The intermediates you saw them go to Nico Collins, whatever. That's what we did with T. Higgins in that week 2 game. They got to do some of that stuff, and you got to be accurate. And I don't know if Pat Mahomes plays like that so on time. He's so used to improvising, but I think he could use his legs and his pat. If it's a close game, I like the Chiefs, but I don't know if they'll let him get like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that this game is going to be a very good matchup for both sides. I think one of the things that really stick out in this one is going to be the third down conversion by both teams, because both of these teams on defense and on offense are pretty good at both of those. So I think you'll see something there. Can the Kansas City Chiefs stop the run? Obviously, they had some issues last week. Historically, and in this season, they've been really good in terms of that. And then you talk about the red zone scoring for both of these teams. It's going to be a challenge, I think, for both of them within the red zone, and which team and which offense can rise to the occasion. And when I look at it from that perspective, I know Lamar is doing his thing. He's going to be able to extend plays. But if we're saying that both of these defenses are really good, it's going to come down to the offense. And I think offensively, it's always hard for me, at least, to go against a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Like, I think the Ravens are a team built to play with the lead. And I think we've seen that for the most part this season. If they get a lead on you, their defense is able to strangle you and their offense is able to stay ahead. And you get in situations like 3rd and short where they're just automatically going to take those with Lamar Jackson. And I think a team like Kansas City, their offense is the only offense, and Pat Mahomes is the only guy that can do kind of the same things when it comes to extending those plays and making sure that he's able to answer back. So I think that this is going to be a very close game. I do agree with you that I think if you're looking at it from a team totality standpoint, I think Baltimore has the better team overall. The other big thing that's going to matter in this one is the trenches. Trenches always matter, but can the Baltimore defense or pass rush get to Pat Mahomes, which is an offensive line that doesn't really give up too many sacks themselves, and vice versa? I do think that Chris Jones and that defensive line for the Chiefs is going to be able to cause some issues. But whoever wins in the trenches, I think, wins the game. I honestly can't call it right now. I think it's very close to call, especially with Baltimore having that home field advantage. But I don't think that this is a team in the Chiefs. Like, if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan and you're expecting what happened against the Texans, especially you talk about the second half, first half was close. You're not going to get all of those false start penalties and all of that from a team that's perennially going to the AFC Championship year in and year out. Like, you're not going to get those. And if you're expecting that you're going to give Pat Mahomes the ball and nothing is going to happen, I just don't foresee that. So I'm going to get a slight edge to Kansas City in this one, just because Pat Mahomes with the football at any moment in this game, the way that this team plays, Andy Reid, I'm going to give them the slight edge because, I mean, they've been there. I haven't seen anybody be able to beat them in the past. And so it's hard for me to say that Baltimore will. However, I do think Baltimore is going to give them all that they can handle. What about you?
I go back and forth in my mind playing it out. If it played out like how it was last week and Lamar has 50 yards in the first half, score is like 10-10 or whatever like that, yeah, Chiefs is like, I like that. Like the Chiefs, like let me ask you, if you're the Chiefs and you win the toss, do you kick the ball or do you take it on the road?
I think the way the Chiefs defense has played this season, if I'm them, I'm actually probably taking the ball just because, like,
see, I don't want to.
If Baltimore gets up on you and you have like a 3-and-out, like, it's tough to come back with that. I think you have to put the pressure on their offense to score. And I think Pat Mahomes, if he gets the ball off the rip, I think he can go down and score. And I think that their defense is actually good enough to try to hold, I think, an early lead over the Ravens. You seem like you want them to kick off first.
This is the thing. I agree with you. I think the Chiefs should take the ball first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if they don't score, the last thing that I want to do is give this team. If I'm the Chiefs, I want the Ravens to get. I want to put the fear of God in them and say that the game is score like the score is 10-10 like it was last week. And imagine if the Chiefs get the ball and then they come back and they answer. You see what I'm saying? And then now it's 17-10, and now Lamar's forced to go make something happen right there. That's the position I'm trying to get them in. And I think Spags is a lot. He's very underrated, and I think that they could do it. But I just think that, say that in the scenario you're saying that we take the ball and we don't score or the score is tied, it's a recipe for the Ravens to come back out in the third quarter, have their halftime joint again, and come back and take the lead. Now, it's Pat Mahomes, so I don't have to. He's not going to CJ Stroud the situation, right, but gives them an opportunity to now be in a situation where they could run and pass. See, the threat of throwing, the threat of running is what makes the Ravens so dangerous. Even if Lamar was to throw for 300, the threat of running, and this is a special series. Do you remember in that game when it was like a minute left in the second quarter? And Lamar had to do like the 2-minute drill.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's so special about that drive? That's the one unique time that everybody in the whole entire world knew you couldn't run. And it was sack. Like it was like a throwaway and then like 2 back-to-back sacks. He was frustrated. He left the field before the clock even ended. You got to get him in that scenario. It's not that he can't throw. It's that you got to get him in a position where no defender gives a damn if they don't care that he's running. And I thought that 2-minute drill was like symbolic of what the situation that you have to get him in. You have to get him in a position where he has to decipher what he sees. Like all the great quarterbacks, this is what you would want to do to Burrow, Herbert, anybody like that. But I do think it takes him down a notch when teams know that they're not running.
What about Pacheco, though? What about Pacheco? Because Pacheco, I think, is the person, like, everybody knows the Ravens are going to run, but the Chiefs can run the ball, too.
He could do some damage. This game, to me, if I'm the Chiefs, I'm speeding it up. And even when I'm running with Pacheco, I'm then getting up to, because say I do get a 3-and-out or something like that, I'm willing to bet if I'm the Chiefs, I want more possessions. That's all I want. I want more opportunities with Pat Mahomes, and I'm speeding it up. If I get the ball, like I'm going to the line of scrimmage quick. I don't want it to be some condensed game. Then Lamar gets like a drive where now he's running, handing the ball off, RPO, throwing it, and then it's 6-7 minutes going down the field. That's how Burrow was doing them when we played them on Monday night. Burrow got the ball. I went back and watched this earlier. He had the ball with 13 minutes left in the second quarter. The second quarter had just started. He ended the drive with the touchdown. It was like 5 minutes left. That's why if you're a Bengals fan, you're like, yeah, bro, we would have did good. You keep Lamar off the field. I think the opposite on this one is like, if I'm Pat, I'm trying to get as many possessions as I can, because the more times that I can get it, the more times I could kind of decipher. And then I'm counting on the defense to make a stop. It could backfire and you'd be like, shoot, you giving them more possessions, whatever. I'm banking on the defense that you're telling me is a good defense to make some of them stops, and maybe those are field goals. But then I'm Pat Mahomes and I'm coming back and I'm scoring touchdowns.
I'm coming back and I'm scoring TDs. And I think you're right. Like Pat Mahomes, in order for this game to not be an upset, I think, by the Ravens, they have to depend on Pat Mahomes going down and consistently getting 7 instead of 3s. All right, so let's go to the other game. We got Lions at the 49ers. This is going to be an interesting one because Deebo Samuel, I believe he practiced limited today, but this is the Detroit Lions taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Me and you both didn't have faith in the Lions winning last week, but they win somewhat comfortably, a little bit controversially, because a lot of people thought that Todd Bowles should have used those timeouts before the end. That was
so stupid.
That was kind of crazy.
If y'all don't know what we're talking about, just go look at Todd Bowles with the last 37 seconds. Jared Goff accidentally nails down the ball too quick, and he had an opportunity to call a timeout. It would have forced the Buccaneers to go kick a 49-yard field goal. The Lions to kick a 49-yard field goal. Say they missed that field goal. The Buccaneers could have got the ball back with 30 seconds and could have maybe, y'all got to go watch that. It was crazy.
But neither here nor there. We are here. San Francisco, to me, did not really look too good in that Packers game. And I think, like, right now, even though historically San Francisco has been a team that is familiar in this position, I feel like the Lions might have the advantage in this one. And then you kind of talk about the fact that they just added a Zach Ertz, another weapon. So you have Sam Laporta, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have J-Mo, you have all of these weapons, and now you have Zach Ertz added to that. I just think that San Francisco defense isn't the same. Like, I think it's a good defense in certain aspects. I'm not saying that they are barbecue chicken out there, but they're just not that same defense. Like, this is a defense that I think the Lions could put up points on. We saw the Packers do some things with them. And I think many people have struggled to try to really stop this Lions offense, especially with Bob Johnson doing his thing. You got two runners that can really do work against you. Now, it is Jared Goff on the road, which we've kind of had that conversation throughout the season.
I was about to say that.
It is Jared Goff on the road. It's not really a good situation from that standpoint. But no Deebo, bro. No Deebo offensively, I think, for the 49ers. Or not even no Deebo, but a hurt Deebo, I just don't really know if I can trust that. I know that they have Ayuk. I know they have Kittle, McCaffrey, and those guys can make plays against this Lions defense. I just don't know, bro. Like, from what I saw from the 49ers, they just don't seem like the typical 49ers. I mean, when we played them, we killed them. The Ravens killed them. Brock Purdy had another situation where there was an interception. Pick six dropped last week. If he has one of those interceptions against this Lions defense that really is kind of opportunistic from that standpoint, I just don't know if they can slow that Lions offense down. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I do not trust Jared Goff on the road. He's a 7-point underdog coming into this game. Get this, the over-under for this game is 51. So Vegas is telling you they think there's going to be some points on the board. The Lions secondary is so ass. I just can't.
That was some great analysis.
We're deep diving into some great analysis now when we come up with stuff like that. But bro, they get cooked every single week. Cam Sutton was getting killed last week. I just do not trust them on the road. I really don't. I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I think Brock Purdy, what he does, I think he gets a bad rap. I think he does do a lot to stretch and extend plays, and he does put the ball in harm's way. But I just think ultimately they have a better team. I don't like the 49ers secondary either. I trust Amon-Ra to do his thing and Laporta do his thing. I just don't believe in golf in that environment. That's going to be a hostile environment. Like if I was going to say this too early on that other game, I wish that Ravens Chiefs game was in Arrowhead. I think that would change that game a lot too.
Oh, for sure.
I think the Lions at home too. I think both of these games, had they been, I would have gone the other way. If the Lions would have been at home, I would say, yeah, I know what you're saying. That's a familiar. I just think that's a lot for them to overcome, bro. And I don't trust that secondary. I think that I saw a prop bet I was going to put on it too. It had Christian McCaffrey 35 yards or over or under on his receiving yards. I just think that he's going to have a good day. Sometimes I always look for Jahmyr Gibbs to go crazy, and I had him on my fantasy team and stuff like that. But it's like they do a great job of like not putting him in a harm's way. I think in this game they got to unleash him. Like they got to really let him get busy. And if they don't do that, I don't think that they really have a great chance in this game. I think that this is a Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he had over 100 all-purpose like last week or whatever. But to me, I would give him more carries than I would give Montgomery. I would give Montgomery those just to keep the defense honest. And I love the way he runs, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I think Gibbs has to do something special. And I think they got to limit the opportunities of Purdy and get a lead and get him in some situations where he can throw the ball in harm's way. His almost or bad turnover worthy throws or whatever is at the highest in the NFL for the NFL season. So you just got to put him in those spots. We saw that when we played him. Another thing that sticks out to me I never recovered from is when the Ravens kicked the dog crap out of the Lions too. I never forgot that game. So
facts for sure. So you going with the 49ers?
I'm going 49ers, and I think the Ravens pull it on the other side. I hope I'm wrong. I want the Lions to win, and of course, I don't like the Chiefs, but
Facts for sure. Well, we'll be right back after this word from our sponsor, Midwest Best Barbecue.
Midwest Best is the place to be for curing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for curing wings. It's the Ace to the Zim, M to the B's. Uno wings, Jeep on wings, and them CTVs. Midwest Best is the place to be for curing wings. Midwest Best is the place to be for curing wings. Say what up to Jordan Battle. We be going to battle. Intercepting balls like CTV did on Seattle. Putting 6 up on AZ. Juice gang amazing. Make sure you come get these wings. The Zimby stay blazing. And T game be smooth as ice. Jamal making DBs fold. TV got big levels. And now you already know. It's so pretty for Uno wings. Cam got the new wings. We call them CTBs. Only at MBs. H to the Zim. M to the B's.
Shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue, 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Definitely be sure to stop by and get some of those CTB wings, get some of those Uno wings. They got some of the best barbecue, if not the best barbecue in the city of Cincinnati, 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Stop through and let them know Ace and Zim sent you. And if you are watching the AFC and NFC Championship, please be sure to stop by and get you some food there. It is A1. It's amazing. You will not regret it. Midwest Best Barbecue.
Let me Let me ask you this though, before we get out of here. I know you got to get out of here. Let me just ask you, what do you think is best for the sport of football? Like, just taking like who you want to win out of it. Like, if there was a dream matchup for the Super Bowl with the teams left, what do you think what are those two teams?
I think the Lions are a very good story. I think the Lions being in the Super Bowl is exciting. It's a really good team, high scoring offense. It's a good story. On the other side, I think it would be either the Chiefs or the Ravens. I think the Ravens, obviously Lamar being in there, that's going to be a big story as well. So I would say if Detroit was able to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, I think
that would go crazy.
Crazy, like
see, I think from a football perspective, 49ers versus Ravens all day. Like now storyline wise, I think it would sound cool and it'd be really cool, but I don't know if people would really hold on to it as much. I think there's so many 49er fans around the world that the ratings and everything like that, I think that's what really people want to see. And if you think about it, the 49ers and the Ravens have been pretty much like the best teams in each conference all year, like for the most part.
Being that we've already seen that game on the national stage,
I want to see the adjustments. I want to see the adjustments. I think if the 49ers were to play, I think the Lions, if they played the Ravens, will get killed. Yeah. I think that the 49ers have a legit chance to take what they saw from the first game and say, okay, this is what we're going to do this time. They had some people that were out in that game or whatever, and that game wasn't really that close, honestly. But I do think that the 49ers have like what it takes to beat them if the Ravens did get to the Super Bowl. I think that the Lions don't stand a chance.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how it plays out. You guys let us know in the comments what you guys think. Let us know your Super Bowl predictions. Let us know what you guys think about Dan Pitcher. Make sure that you follow the Wincinnati Pod on Twitter at Wincinnati Pod. Follow Zim at Zim Hude. Follow me at New Stripe City. And make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. We will see you guys next week. This has been the Wincinnati Podcast.
Hude! It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm Ace. We
got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I got to get you a top 5 receiver.
It was good. Watch out for us.